So by the time you're watching this, it's now been about 6 days since those tragic wildfires on the island of Maui, and the ones that completely destroyed the town of Lahaina. Instantly, I was heartbroken. Like a lot of you who saw the visuals, felt the emotions, and all of this, from thousands of miles away across the Pacific Ocean. I'm fond of this place. I'm familiar with this place. Like so many other people, there's no other way to feel instantly than heartbroken. But what I wanted to talk about here is the transition from heartbroken to very concerned and, worried for Lahaina and for the island of Maui. I've broken this down into 4 different thoughts. I'll spell each one out here. The first is the most obvious. There is still so much to be realized about this tragedy. And the primary thing is the loss of life. When I first reacted to what happened, there were 6 fatalities reported. Now, you knew that number was bound to rise, but it went from 6 to 30-something to 50-something to near triple digits pretty quick. And the concern now is that of the reported thousands still missing and unaccounted for, maybe some of that is lost in communication. Maybe some of that is an unfortunate number that is bound to rise. So let's establish that. You can replace a lot of things. You can't replace history, but you definitely cannot replace a life. And so that's most important. And hearing the accounts of how quickly this fire approached and developed and moved at about a mile per minute. It is unbelievable. The more videos that surface from that day, remember, power was out, communications were down for so long. We're only now starting to come to the realization of what happened, how quickly it happened, and the ramifications of it happening. But there's a lot to be realized of neighborhoods entirely wiped off the map, and schools and homes and places of work and businesses, and the trauma that will be habit, wanting to go back home. You've been away from home for a while, but you try to go home and it's not there. Neither is the home of your neighbor or your friend or pretty much anybody up and down the highway. The fact that there's almost nothing to fall back on that seems familiar. And that realization, I think, is the part I worry about. That's the part that's still happening here. To process the fire is one thing, and I don't know that everybody's even at that stage yet. But then to let the damage and the effects sink in for so long, I'm worried for the people of Maui. There's also the short-term sustainability. Kids in school, food supplies, shelter, repairs, temporary solutions, and even the economy there to a certain degree. I mean, I don't think anybody should be in the mood of wanting to get back into business or get that normal life going again. How could you? But at some point, for some people, that's going to be necessary. They'll have to figure this out sooner than they'd ever want to. Short term is going to feel like a long time. But there's a lot of people with a lot of different things to figure out. And then there's also the long-term effect. What happened in half a day, maybe just a couple hours? Still not clear on the timeline of when the first fire was reported to when ultimately everything was contained, but that short period of time is going to result in like a 5 to 10 year process at least. Rebuilding houses, communities, starting from scratch, the approval process, the the construction process. And it's not like you're on the mainland of the United States, shipping lumber and supplies and concrete, nails and roofing materials, HVAC systems. It took a long time to build up all that infrastructure of just one town, Lahaina. And to have to do it all over again simultaneously, my goodness, what an effort this is going to be for so many years. Again, I'm not bringing this up to make anybody in Hawaii or on Maui feel worse. I kind of feel maybe like sharing this to let everybody else really have it sink in what's going on here. I think a lot of people saw this story, they understand what happened, they processed it, and then moved on with the news cycle. And in this instance, I don't want that to happen. You know, I'm also going to throw some links down below of places you can donate. I think that's important. Should have said that from the top, just realizing as I do this, we'll make sure that's down below so you can directly help and contribute. The last thing I'm going to bring up here is probably the most important thing of all. And it's not so much residential properties kind of up the hill, so to speak, in Lahaina, more of the residential area. This probably has to do more on the shoreline and on the beachfront and where Front Street is. And that's the potential conflict of rebuilding. I can already imagine that there are some individuals, some investors, and some companies out there who unbelievably might try and capitalize on this moment. Swoop in with an offer to buy land that has property that's decimated. And I think for so many people who are going to rely on home insurance or federal funding to rebuild what they had, I'm not sure they're going to get every last dollar they need. Any one of you who's dealt with insurance in their life already, you know that it gets you most of the way back, but it does not necessarily always entirely replace what you had. And for some people, if the money's tight and they can't make it work, they might be enticed to sell a home, a business, a property, whatever. And that's terribly sad because you have others that are like waiting on this opportunity to prey on somebody who's gone through tragedy, who's now in even a tougher spot because they want to rebuild, maybe they can't, and somebody else will swoop in and let their plans unfold in Lahaina. And I just do not want to see that happen. Lahaina should be built, rebuilt, the way locals want it. And quite honestly, there should absolutely not be any outside influence. It's up to them. Optimally, you take a look at all of the video and the captures and the Google Earth scans, and I guess it's possible. Like, you could theoretically rebuild Lahaina close to how it was. I mean, there's enough evidence out there. Clearly, it's not going to be the same ever. It's not going to replace ever what was there, the history of it, the meaning of it. By the way, in the first video I did, should have went more into depth about the historical relevance of Lahaina, the first capital of the Hawaiian Kingdom. But optimally, you rebuild it to what it was, what it had become until August of 2023. You've got the ability to do that. Like, technically, it can happen. Logistically, it could happen. But the reality is there's going to be conversation, potentially conflict about so many things moving forward. Who does what, how they do it, when they do it, what's the priority. I hate to say that tragedy it brings unity, right? Obviously. And the effort right now to keep people sheltered and fed. But in the long run, there will be some complications to this, and I hate that for everybody involved. So I just want to say, clearly heartbroken was the first emotion. And I'll maybe check in on this topic continuously. I just feel disconnected by several thousand miles. And of course, the fact that I've never called this home, but have visited enough and do at least understand it's important to keep at the forefront of our minds and our thoughts while other things continue to happen and the world keeps turning. On Maui and in Lahaina, their world kind of stopped on this day. And they still need us, and we should be thinking about them. I'll see you next time.